Good morning, everybody,
Good
and
morning,
welcome.
John.
Good morning, and welcome to Show Business, the weekly radio talk show, normally hosted by Amar and definitely hosted by Jalf, but I'm stepping in today to help Amar out as he is away. How are you, Jalf?
Good. And each week we'll bring you some views, news, and one or two clues from the business world. Good to have you in, Dan. How you been?
I've been good. Been busy, but good, and generally, sort of coping with things. There's a lot going on in the world, as we know.
Yes.
But we're steady, and we're ready, and we're ready to go. So it's all good.
Good, excellent. Yeah, it is challenging times at the moment. I think it's trying to keep a cap on inflation seems to be the biggest thing that ministers seem to be worried about. But I think that's the thing that's hurting everyone the most. The spiraling costs. I managed to just been for my gym session and managed to pick something up on BBC that they were talking about an emergency reduction in the VAT, which would be very much welcomed, I think, by most people. So let's see if they do go ahead and do something like that, because that could definitely help us.
Absolutely. Every little counts at the moment. And talking of phrases and supermarkets and things that are in the news, Jeff, obviously the spiraling costs and the cost of living. We saw an article the other day about Heinz and the products coming off the shelf in Tesco, and it was due to an ongoing dispute because Tesco didn't want to pass on the cost increases to their customers. And it became very obvious because obviously Heinz has got some, really big product lines, like beans and ketchup and all that kind of stuff. Other brands are available. But essentially the shelves became bare just, after a couple of days. And it stuck out like a sore thumb. And essentially, Tesco was saying it's not justifiable to pass on the price increases that Heinz are asking for, I guess, in terms of their wholesale costs. But it looks like it will be resolved. I guess both parties can't do without each other. But it feels like at the end of the day, it's going to be the customer that suffers.
Well, I think it's always the case, isn't it? The corporations are never going to, they're never the ones that are going to kind of suffer. It is going to be the general public, especially the working class. The top 1%, they'll always be okay, no matter how much a tin of beans goes up by. So obviously, because of this, there's a lot of, last week we had all the rail strikes, and there's talk of other strikes imminent. Now, if that's going to be the way that it goes, because the working class are so frustrated with the cost increases, and it's really affecting their lifestyle and their livelihoods, I guess we might have to begin to accept more and more strikes from different institutions across numerous industries. It wouldn't surprise me if it does, because I can see how the costs are so high. I mean, the taxes are incredibly high, and with the increases from the pandemic, it's just been. When I look at the net that people are getting, and the PAYE bills, the VAT bills that we have to pay, you just think that there's a huge bulk of it that does go to HMRC. But people, when even if there's the last minimum wage, it was, X whatever percentages it was, but the cost increases are just far outweigh that. And the thing about the cost increases, let's say, for example, look at diesel or petrol. It's not that it's a yearly increase, like the salaries in most instances. they're going to keep on going up. Maybe I would have thought they could go up another 6 times this year.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise us if they did.
Yeah.
You know, so I think there's a big challenge in society. Government have got to really play the cards correct. And I think a great deal of diplomacy is needed. We don't want to get too much into politics, Dan, but I just think that we've always talked on this show with Amar over many years. We just didn't feel that we should poke that big bear in Russia, because if it starts to bite, it's going to really affect everybody. And I think we can see the consequences of that in the whole of Europe because of the cost of gas and petrol and all the rest of it. And it's from that. Now, you know, none of us want war. I'm sure the Russians don't want war. And the diplomats really need to do their jobs and be diplomats and come to a diplomatic solution.
Yeah.
And resolve the issues and try and put things back in a trajectory closer to what it used to be. We're never going to go back to where it was because of the 2 years that we've experienced with lockdowns and the pandemic and this, that, and the other, because the world has already changed from that point. So yes, there's lots going on, Dan. And I think hopefully most businesses are very much aware of everything that's going on because it's so public. It's so in our faces. So at least hopefully they've got some contingencies in plan to kind of deal with the ongoing macroeconomics, so that their businesses aren't going to suffer and they're going to be able to align their businesses in line with economic conditions. Well,
I mean, just to sort of follow on from your point about Russia, Jalf, I think this thing that we've seen in the news recently from the summit that they had in Spain, where they're promising an extra £1 billion worth of military aid for Ukraine. Now, obviously, what's going on there isn't right for humanity in general, and it should be resolved by discussion, as most things should. But listening to a radio show the other day, I heard about Putin, and somebody was saying, who was quite in the know about it, that he's not mad, he's not crazy, he's just very angry, and he's angry about what's happened over several years. And this has been a big thing that's been building, but the timing of it post-COVID couldn't have been any worse when the world is trying to recover from something.
Of course, I think that when you look into, there's all sorts of things that you read in the media, which is just an absolute nonsense. I mean, some of the things you read in the media is just so poor that, oh, Putin is dead. That's his, his, what do they say? It's like a body, whatever they call it. And he's on his deathbed. He's gone to some, even the American Nancy Pelosi is coming and saying that, oh, he's got brain fog from COVID and this, that, and the other. It's just an absolute joke. Come on. Russia is a very, very powerful nation. I think they are very, very, it's an old historic nation. I think when you look at the government and look at the length of time, they're very, very organized. They're very, very settled. So, for example, Sergei Lavrov, he's been there on the scene for many years. It's a very, very stable country in terms of its government and stuff. I'm comparing it to things like, let's say, Iraq. The regime changes, you don't know who's going, and there's like the whole government is turned upside down. From someone like Saddam Hussein, who was in control of that country, to so many other people that just changed consequent of the wars. Now in Russia, it's not like that. They are a very, very organized nation. They're probably proud and have a lot of pride in what they do. It's an important nation as far as the natural resources that they have, which Europe depend on. It's a huge nation. Now, it's not, the West our countries keep on promoting and try to make out that Putin is just a sole man, as though it's some kind of a czar,
like a lone wolf sort of thing.
Yeah, but he's not, though, because
not.
I mean, when you look at it in detail, they have a really big constitution. They have, I think it's the Duma or the Doma, which is effectively the parliament. They have debates, and he can't go and make all of these decisions himself. He has to get parliamentary approval, and that's not something that most of us are kind of privy to. So my point is that I think Russia is not going anywhere. They're going to remain powerful because of the fact also they have nuclear weapons. So you can't go and do what the Americans have done to the likes of Iraq and Libya and Syria and all those other countries. You just cannot do that to Russia. So Russia, that's my point about the diplomats. You're the diplomats. You need to have diplomacy. You've got to understand who Russia are and come to a solution which is in the best interests of the world and us, because you're supposed to be working for us, not using this or allowing this situation to affect everybody's lifestyles in such a detrimental way literally across the world in many ways.
Yeah.
So really we need some solutions there, but I just can't see how it's going to happen, because whether it be the G7, they seem to just not want to have any type of discussions. China are kind of in the fringes, not doing too much really, not saying yes or no, they're just kind of sitting on the fence. And really, I don't know which other groups there are, Dan, that could come and find a diplomatic solution. So it's something that the longer it goes on, the longer it affects the entire world.
Absolutely, and I think this NATO summit in Spain, where Finland and Sweden have been invited to become part of the NATO setup when they've previously been, I guess, what's the word? They've really sat on the fence, and they've
kept their neutrality, haven't they?
Yeah, and it feels like there was some opposition from Turkey, who we know has got some allegiances to Russia, but apparently that this new invitation to those two different nations would actually give NATO a border of 800 miles with Russia directly,
well,
which it doesn't currently have.
Yeah, of course, but the Russians, if you think about it, would we allow the Russians to have stationed themselves in Republic of Ireland? It's the same difference, isn't it? It's the same difference, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. No, you're right.
You can't be hypocritical here. You can't have double standards, especially with a country as big as and as powerful as that. So all he's saying is that, well, why should you be on my border? Because when it was the Cuban Missile Crisis, why did that all come to fruition? Because the Americans were, under no means were they going to be able to allow Russia to be able to be within striking distance of America. So there was a big hoo-ha, and that nearly led to the nuclear war back in the 60s. And that was for the same principles. Now, I just think that if Finland and NATO, especially Finland, who like you said, the 800 border is on Finland, and it's next to, they're very, very close to St. Petersburg, which is a very important country for the Russians. I just can't see that they're going to allow that. So what are they going to do next? Are they going to go into, are the Russians going to see it as a threat and then go into Finland? Yeah. Because would we do the same if they came to the Republic of Ireland? I think there'll be alarm bells, and I think it's easy if you can look at things from the other person's perspectives, and don't be hypocritical. Then you can understand why they have their position. I mean, I watched quite an interesting series. Well, it was an interesting 1-hour video by Oliver Stone, the great American director, and it was called Ukraine on Fire. I don't know if you've seen it.
I've not seen
But
it.
the thing is, it's been there on YouTube for many years, for the last 6-7 years. But all of a sudden, they've decided to take it off because it's not pro-narrative.
Right.
So you can't find it on other places, and I've managed to watch it, and it was an eye opener on the history and the background of Ukraine and why the situation, where it arose from. It hasn't arisen just from the recent events. It goes back to a coup in 2014. So there is interest in history that we should all know and understand. And I just think that politics, obviously, it has such a fundamental impact on our daily lives that so many people are suffering because of political decisions. And we just hope the politicians think for the best interest of their people, which is what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that, and I completely agree with you. I mean, this the nature of what he's saying now about, you know, if he feels there's a threat coming from somewhere, then he's going to create the same threat from the territory from within the threat exists, which is, you know, it's almost saying, right, so if there's going to be a threat in that area, he's going to do the same sort of thing, you know, as he's done in Ukraine. That's what he's hinting at. He's not saying it directly. And I you know, I go back to China as well, Jalf, in terms of what you were saying, because I don't feel like they're particularly helpful in these conversations. They are a global superpower. You know, there's a lot of, you know, talk of China and how powerful they are, and I think it does offer a significant challenge to the stability of things because of how powerful they've become. You know, if they were to stand alongside a country like Russia, it suddenly changes the whole dynamic of the situation. But I think, you know, in general, it's gone on for long enough. Like you say, I don't know the way out of this at the moment. Feels like a lot of posturing from different sides, and you don't hear a great deal about the negotiation side of things or the diplomacy that's happening. And you know, it feels like in the meantime there's a lot of people suffering, not just, you know, us, everyone, you know, in our country, but globally, and in particular in Ukraine. And it needs to be brought to an end.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully someone will do something soon, but I just fear that it could go, it could get worse. It could get worse because if they feel threatened by Finland's kind of joining NATO, then and they decide to say that, right, well, we're going to go into Finland. You know, then it's just going to be a non-stop war. And is that are we at the beginnings of World War III? Is if you want to look at it in a the worst case scenario, and the best case scenario is that the diplomats get together and avoid World War III. And it's probably as serious as that. And you say about China, Dan, if you can recall in the lockdown, all the issues that we had due to the supply chain, and we suffered so much because you couldn't get any products, is because everything is made in China.
Yeah.
I mean, so how on earth can you live without China? Because if they say that for a week they're gonna stop their exports, I mean, we're all gonna be in trouble. Our businesses and stuff. Are you gonna be able to manage your businesses? Let's say, for example, packaging. Yeah. Where will you get your packaging from? I mean, we were getting our packaging from suppliers in the lockdown, and everything was all about, right, yeah, lockdown, all the ships not leaving the port and this, that, and the other. And that's all the talk was about. So again, you know, times evolve and change. But there seems to be a handover here from when Britain was the great superpower in the world, in the British Empire era, which was effectively handed over to an era of the Americans having their bit. You know, they were the dominant power in the world, and it looks as though there is a shift that we're probably experiencing at the moment, and that shift is from America to potentially China.
Yeah.
Because of the power that they're wielding across the world in terms of how much money and wealth that they have, and it's the production, isn't it, Dan? It's such a huge nation.
Yeah.
And I think the production and the labor costs, to be able to get products to us at prices that are affordable, they and things that we depend on a daily basis. Now they've got it right in the corner. So there's interesting geopolitics, but they do. Just wanted to maybe touch up on that because it does affect our everyday lives and it does affect our businesses, and we probably should all understand the big picture, and maybe you know, from that we could potentially make decisions about our businesses and stuff. Just to give you an example of how I'm thinking, when there's a economic downturn, I've listened to some analysts over the last 3 to 6 months or so, and they've said that, look, the interest rates are going to constantly, they're going to go up, go up, go up, and go up. And I had a discussion with Amar about this a few weeks ago. Would you be surprised, Dan, if the interest, I mean, it's about 1.25%, but can you remember in the 80s what the interest rates were?
It was in the high teens, wasn't it?
It was like 14, 15%.
Yeah, or low to mid-teens, yeah.
Now imagine that if something happened, an economic catastrophe, where the interest rates had to keep on going up by, and all of a sudden, look, we're really, really sorry, Bank of England governor, he's going to make an announcement. Unfortunately, due to the economic catastrophe caused by the Russians and had an impact on everybody else, and the Chinese not playing ball, the interest rates gone up by 4% or 5%. I mean, people are going to get such a big shock if they are still mortgaging themselves up to the hilt and getting their cars and finance up to the hilt, and they rely on that income, which is not going up, but all of a sudden the costs go up fundamentally. They're in for a shock, aren't they?
Absolutely. And it's those sort of things coupled with the current crisis of you know, sort of where we are, you know, financially, and the struggles that we're within. I honestly don't know if I can actually see that things are going to go back to what we perceive as being normal.
I don't think so, Dan. No. It's
the new norm. It's you know, we're in a period of adjustment here, and you know, ultimately, you know, and I feel you know, so sorry for all of us really in terms of struggling and with but how much more can you cut your own costs as a, you know, as a family, as a person, as a, you know, it's like you were talking before about the amount that we're paying to the government on taxes and all this sort of stuff. And, you know, if we don't oil their wheels, then things stop going round from their perspective. You know, they've got, you know, billions of pounds worth of debt in any case from where we've been in the last few years.
Yeah.
It you know, it ultimately feels like we just we need something to happen to get us back on track. I mean, ultimately, we want people spending money. We want business coming back and recovering fully. We want job creation, and you know, we want people to be able to live and you know, sort of not just live on the breadline and not just exist, because it's not a great place to be. We want people to thrive. We want people to flourish and to be the best that they can be, and to live fulfilling lives. And I think that's you know, the most important thing for everybody, you know, in terms of getting back to a good and fulfilling life. And I just don't see that we're going to, this issue is going to go away quickly, and therefore, how do we manage ourselves? How do we manage our finances? How do we manage what we're doing, and how do we look after ourselves in the meantime? They're the most important things.
Of course, I think it's just that forward planning, isn't it? I guess it's you put your building blocks in place where you safeguard the families in terms of a roof over their head, get the enough finances to be able to keep on top of the utility bills and the food, and you get that set in stone. You have some backup in terms of some savings to fall back upon. Once those basic fundamentals are in place, you then have to make sure that you're not too exposed. I think people have got to not do too many silly things at the moment, because in terms of, oh yeah, I really fancy this car, and let me just get the loan because I can afford another £100 a week or £100 a month or whatever it may be. I think you just got to be so cautious that maybe it's the luxuries. You might have to cut them out until we find a level of stability. I think that's what I would advise at this moment in time, because it's just a highly volatile world that we're living in at the moment, and you have to kind of just be careful what further risks you take or you plunge your finances into. So I think that's probably us talking about things from a cautious perspective, Dan.
Yeah.
I think on the other end, though, if we're looking at things positively,
yeah,
I think definitely we've been out of a pandemic for quite a while. On the streets, though, I must say, in the city centre of Newcastle, I feel that I'm just privileged or happy just to feel that people are out on the streets, and the shopping centres are looking busy, the restaurant and the bars, they look busy. People seem to be a lot happier. I think if you want to talk about a positive story in the city at the moment, I don't know if you're into your football or not, Dan, but on Tuesday, so all the season ticket holders had the opportunity to renew their season tickets probably about a month ago. And I think that normally the day after the deadline for those who are existing season ticket holders, they kind of put on general sale the ones that haven't renewed their season tickets.
Yeah.
And this year they didn't do that because almost everyone renewed their season tickets.
Yeah.
And I think that they had 1,000 people who 1,000 tickets were available. Maybe it's because of the age, or they've moved out of town who didn't renew their tickets, because there's always going to be a few people.
Yeah.
Now they took a good 3-4 weeks to put them back on for general sale.
Yeah.
Right. And they put them on sale on Tuesday gone.
That's right.
Tuesday gone, and by 10:04 there was 28,000 people in a queue waiting to get 1,000 tickets. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And along with that, if you want to then, so all the season tickets are finished, right? So the only way you can go to the matches now is if you buy the match day tickets. But to buy the match day tickets, you've got to be registered. So to get registered, there was about 17,000 people. That was registration day was yesterday. There were 17,000 people waiting to get registration, just so that they could potentially buy a ticket for the match days. So I think the feel-good factor in the city from the football, it's just unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And I think, what the Saudis have done, and there seems to be this criticism of the Saudis beyond the city and in other areas. And, the only simple answer is that, look, if the Saudi government, they're good enough for our queen, they're good enough for us, rather than going into having to answer all of these questions about, human rights and this and that and A, B, C, and D. But what they're doing to the city, what they've done to the club has been absolutely incredible. the feel-good factor in the city is just unbelievable. And that's even before, you know, the season started to kick off. So I think that's a real positive for the city. That feel-good factor, it just, you can just feel it. And that's what we also live for, Dan. You got all the financial parts of it, but you need something in your lives that make you feel good.
Yeah.
And I think the football adds so much energy to our souls, especially in a city like Newcastle where everyone's football mad. So that's kind of really amazing development with the football club since last October, whenever it was. And you know, less than a year, they've just done so much for the club, and it's changed the city. So
Well,
that's good.
I mean, the thing, you know, I'm a Newcastle fan as well, Jalf, and you know, my wife and my kids are all Man City fans, unfortunately.
Okay.
But you know, it's not the worst team in the world to watch
Yeah.
when Newcastle's not playing. So
Yeah.
Ultimately, similar kind of story there with investment. You know, right from, you know, the word go and investing not just in, you know, the surface level stuff, but the deeper, more sort of back office type thing, you know, like the training grounds and the academies and all of that kind of stuff. And ultimately, Newcastle, and as a team, as a club, as a city, we're going to go on a journey now. And where that journey it takes us, it's going to be really, really interesting to see. I think as much as, you know, there's kind of like almost like a little bit of a alignment of stars going on, because you know, as much as City's had a really good you know, summer of signings and you know, releases and stuff like that, that I think Newcastle's doing pretty good. And I also think that with the manager that they've got in place now, and the backing, you know, of the owners, there's kind of a setup now where you feel like, you know, this is really got potential. And I think, you know, that being said, it's you know, the signal of all of that is because there's the faith of all of those believers who were standing in the queues to buy those tickets or those memberships. And it's a fantastic thing. You're obviously keeping your membership and your season ticket going?
I've got 3 season tickets, which obviously I renewed straight away. My only disappointment was last year. Honestly, I left it last minute, and on the day, I struggled to get through to the phone calls. I was there on the phone for hours and hours, and I couldn't get through all day, right? So I had to get on and renew them the day after. I still managed to get my 3 season tickets, but they moved me to different seats, which I was gutted about.
Right.
There was only 1 row back, but I was really comfortable with where I was. But anyway, that's a bit of a something that at least I've got the tickets, but I wish I was. So this year, you know, as soon as the renewal deadline comes, you get about 3 weeks. I was onto them straight away. You have to still wait an hour, but hey, so they're all done. I just feel a little bit sad because there's so many people that in the Ashley era that they just love Newcastle United, but he had destroyed our souls so much that they just didn't know what to do. They were going along and trying to be loyal to the club, but it just came to the point where it was hurting them, that there was no changes to the stadium and he was just neglecting the club so much. And people think, well, maybe if the season ticket sales start to drop and the numbers going into St. James's Park start to drop, maybe he might leave. And people were going through those motions, and there's so many like really avid fans that didn't renew their tickets. And I remember a couple saying, oh, we're not going to renew our tickets because we're just so sick. And I feel really sorry for them because they're such good loyal fans, and I don't know how they're going to be able to get back into St. James's Park anymore.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's going to come down to when they finally build the rest of the stadium, isn't it?
Well, I mean, that's the whole debate, Dan. I just feel that I don't think St. James's Park is the right place to make that into a 70-seater. I really don't. I love St. James's Park, but I think by the time you renew and renovate that, I think that you build a new stadium if you're thinking about it. And why can't you replicate the same kind of atmosphere if you get the architects to create the stadium where you're very close to the pitch and this, that, and the other? Surely, from a design perspective, you can't do it. Yes, you would lose a bit of the soul, but then, you know, we have to evolve as a club. I think that if we were able to secure the Metro Arena site, and it's on the right next to the river, it's already got good facilities for cars going in, and there seems to be that people are quite used to holding events there. So in terms of the roads around, they would probably work. But I think they might have already earmarked it for development. But if they are thinking of expanding, I think you build a brand new stadium, of 75-seater stadium. Where you build where it's fit for purpose rather than just another add-on and another add-on. I don't know. That was my thought on it. I understand how much, but then also the only thing I would disagree with if they build a new stadium and move it out of the city centre, because I think that has something very, very special. If you imagine you move it out like 5 miles out, I just don't think that would be the same.
I agree with that. I mean, there's nothing better than, at least if you're not at the match on a Saturday afternoon and you're in town and hearing the noise from that place.
Yeah, it adds something. It adds something special to because the city centre is a nucleus of the city, and the stadium is in the city centre, and that's the nucleus of the city centre. Like they say, it's the cathedral. So if you move that out, I just think that would affect things a lot. So I mean, there are decisions that the board will make, but I think the board are very intelligent. They've got good local knowledge, because they're sponging information from all the locals, and they made amazing decisions. Every single decision they made is so good. So hopefully they'll continue to make great decisions, and we're in safe hands. But it's brilliant for the city. The knock-on effect on all the businesses and everyone is brilliant. So that's something, I guess, that's something a bit more positive from what we started with.
So I was going to ask you, Jalf, just in a completely different subject. I remember that we spoke a while ago about your business, and I actually was fortunate enough to go there last weekend.
Is everything okay? You should text us something, text me, so I'll make sure that you're.
I'm like the secret shopper, I don't want any airs and graces, but it was fantastic. And I know when you talked about it, you talked about the product. We were a little bit nervous because we couldn't get a seat inside because we just left it too late to book. We sat outside, and it was absolutely phenomenal. Like, even with the heaters and stuff like that, and the staff there. Like, when you talk about your product, and my journey as a consumer through getting, because I think I left it till the day to book. I spoke to the guy on the phone, and I was like, and he's like, "I've only got tables outside," and I was like, "Well, what's it like?" And he's like, "Oh, it's normally quite a nice atmosphere, quite chilled, but there's other people out there." And we went with another couple of one of my best friends from growing up, and we had a fantastic time there. And it was the product, and what I wanted to talk about in particular, and I think what Martha, she might join us in a few minutes and just talk about a little bit, is the customer journey, because obviously you guys have mapped this out, because it feels very natural in terms of when you arrive and the welcome that you're given, and the instructions, and how knowledgeable the staff are about the food and all that kind of stuff. And the one thing I have to say is that I chose the wrong thing, but it was still lovely. But the journey and the product, as you put it, was just great. We had such a great time. Really, really amazing, and I think your staff were phenomenal. So
I mean, when you look at this, the customer journey, that journey begins on the plans that you map out at a design stage. So you think about everyone on a piece of paper. Really, you got to think, oh well, if this table is sat here, how are they going to feel? Are they going to be comfortable? And the most amazing thing is when you see that thought process come to life in a physical space, and the physical seats arrive, and then you kind of think, oh wow, this is what I thought, or I didn't think it was going to be like this. So you have a lot of that. I guess we're quite blessed in Jesmond because we have that outside space, but we've utilized that far better than what our previous operator had done. So we've made like major changes. We're about to give that another refurb as well, and that's about, it's going to happen in the next few weeks. Just it's nearly 10 years. We've always been constantly improving it, but we've got a lot of things that we want to improve in terms of the toilets, the flooring and lighting and this, that and the other, which would enhance the offering. But I think the customer journey, we plotted out on a piece of paper on the floor plans, and then it starts from there. I think critical, Dan, the thing that you mentioned about the staff, they're so important, and that having that product knowledge. But the biggest challenge about that is you need for the staff to develop the knowledge. It takes time to learn all aspects of the menu and the operational processes and things like that. And it's a matter of getting the staff in and keeping them with you for as long as possible. So every member of staff, they have a cycle if they're students and things like that. But you know, when we've recruited, we try and make sure that there is longevity and try and tell them that, look, we want you to be with us for the length of the time that you're studying. If it's for 3 years, be with us for the whole 3 years. And we're going to train you, we're going to develop you, we're going to nurture you, we'll give you better training than anybody else. And you know, we'll pay you a good rate, and along with that, a nice environment to work. But also for you as a student, you don't have to think about, oh, where's my, move from job to job to job to job, because you just want to be settled in one job and focus on your studies. So it's a matter of locking down the team. I think the critical aspect of any business. We found ways to try and do that. We've got a great core team. The periphery team is brilliant as well, but they do change every now and then. But it's just to try and sustain or maintain those standards that are set. I always tell my team that don't think that we're good, you know, because if you think that you're there, then there's no room to improve. You got to always have some insecurity, think that, oh yeah, you know, I can do better and improve and develop what we have. I think that's a general mindset that we do have as a team. But you know what, 99% of all of our guest diners, they do enjoy themselves, but you're always going to have times where we get things wrong as well. Accidents have happened, or we've made mistakes, and that's inevitable, but we try to deal with it the best we can. So you would want every single guest to dine to be over the moon and happy, but I know that it's not always possible with the best will in the world.
Well, you mentioned something relevant there, Martha. I don't know if you're around and if you can join us, but there's something that Jalf mentioned there, which is he was talking about happiness of customers, and I don't know if you were going to sort of just kind of give us your overview in terms of. This is Martha, everybody. Martha Germany from the SME Centre of Excellence.
Morning,
in
everyone.
But she's got some interesting things just to talk about in terms of the customer journey mapping and things like the customer's emotions and how important those things are. Martha, over to you.
Yeah, I think Jalf talked about a lot of this already. But for the business topic of the week, I'm not going to do Ammar's little jingle song thing. So it's just the idea that customer journey mapping is a model that you can use to understand your customer better, to help reduce internal costs and improve your customer experience. So you can apply it to internal training sessions, so your team understands how to deliver the best customer experience. Again, something that Jalf just talked about. So the best way to do it to start with is to analyze interaction your customers have with your business. So if it's an online business, where they see you, if it's an advert, what makes them click, what do they see, when their journey through your website, all of that.
So is that like you're talking about touch points there, Martha, more than anything? Or
yes,
because I'm thinking, you know, like the first touch point that I got from if I put this in context, right, and talk about my experience at Dabblewell and for Jalf's reference, my first experience at Dabblewell was when my wife went to get her haircut for the first time in Newcastle at a hairdresser's around the corner. I was left on my own with the dog, and I was wandering the streets and somehow came across Dabblewell from the signage from the outside, and it said something like street food and blah blah blah, and I wandered down this quite innocuous back street place, and I just thought to myself, what on earth is this? I've never seen anything like it. And that was my first experience of it. And I didn't really think, I've read the menu a bit. There was a nice lady who was doing some clearing up and stuff like that, but that was my first touch point, right? And at that point, I didn't really have any emotion. I was just sort of stunned, you know, like, what is this? And then I came away from it, and somebody then at my boys' football match mentioned an Indian restaurant in Jesmond called Dabawal and said how good it was. So there was a word of mouth thing there, right? Where I was like, this is my journey. And I was like, whoa, I was there the other day, you know, I didn't think much of it, but then so on and so forth. Anyway, it comes around to the point where, you know, you then like, right, with a couple of friends who've lived in Newcastle all their lives. Oh yeah, we go there all the time. You know, why don't we go? And so then I'm into the decision of going there and you know, studying the menu for over a week and deciding what I'm going to have and speaking to my friends, and they're like, well, I'm just going to choose on the night, and I'm like, well, no, this is important. You know, I need to know it. And anyway, I guess the point is when I got there and I'm in the restaurant and I'm drinking Cobra beer and I'm eating nice starters and you know, with the heat air on and the outside ambience and all the rest of it. And I'm just thinking to myself, actually, this is bob on. I feel really happy at this point. Is that what you're talking about, Martha?
Yeah, so all the different stages that the customer goes through and then the actions that the business has to complete as you go through it. So they had to have the menu outside the restaurant for you to notice. And then they had to have the heaters out there and all of that, just going so that you feel welcome and having a good experience there. A good way.
It was a great experience. And sorry, and just, I know I'm wittering on a lot here, but what I thought, and Jalf, I'll bring you in just at this point about that experience. What a great idea to theme that restaurant as how you've themed it for that location. Because ultimately I could have been sitting somewhere like in Delhi or in Karachi or in somewhere, you know, exotic, you know, from my perspective, because of the feeling that I had. It was like a little slice of the origin of the
it is. I think, you know, some things fall into place. It was just a location in the back street. No one was too, it was a restaurant previous to us, so someone had the foresight to turn that garage, to fight to turn it into a restaurant, because it used to be different little rooms and they made it bigger and bigger and bigger. So the person that created at the first instance about 20, 30 years ago, we give him a huge credit for having that nous to be able to do it. But for us, having a street food restaurant, for it to be next to the railway line, metro line, and being in a, you can call it a horrible back street in some ways. But then as soon as you get into our environment, you forget about all the rest that's there and how you've got into it. And that adds a bit more quirkiness to it, adds a novelty factor to it. And that's the things that we thought about in terms of the guest experience. And it's a bit like if someone that you haven't been there before and someone who's already been, oh, let me take you somewhere, it's probably a little bit more exciting, that customer journey, and that creates a perception. But ultimately, no matter what, the customer journey and experience, no matter what that journey is, ultimately, the core product of ours is the food, and the food must be at the behest of all things, and everything else is an addition to that experience, whether you have the facility to eat outside or whether you're eating inside, and the atmosphere and the buzz and the other type of guest and the service. But ultimately, if the food is not good, I think everything else it adds to a lot less. So I guess based on what Martha's saying, if you relate it to different products as well, not just food and restaurants, there's always a journey, but I guess it's about satisfaction of that customer journey is probably the critical point. At somewhere, you probably got that somewhere written, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, I've got in that when you're mapping it, you need to try and work out what the customer's feeling at each point. If there's a point where they're feeling a bit annoyed, you know, this is taking too long to load on the website, then that's something that you need to fix, because people are more likely to remember one negative experience over 100 small positive experiences, unless it's like something massively positive. So it's important to work out where you can improve it, what's preventing your customer from continuing on the journey. Because ultimately, I don't know about you, but if I click on a website that takes 5 seconds to load, I clicked out of there before it's come up.
I think today, though, also we need to be mindful that the public's patience is a lot lower than what it used to be.
Yeah.
Because I think the pandemic's had some kind of an impact where the patients are shorter, the expectations are higher. We're all going through struggles at home, and we've got bills have gone up and this, that, and the other. So if we do go out, we just want to be really spoiled.
Yeah, definitely.
So, we're mindful of all of those social changes that have happened in society over the last couple of years, and we have to counteract that and be mindful of what everyone is going through. So there are textbooks that are out there that tell you about all of these things, but I think it's a matter of being able to apply social changes to your model as quickly as you possibly can. And maybe that's the benefit of the independence, because they're able to nurture and change a lot quicker, a lot faster to the corporates, because the corporates, they have to have their meetings with all their directors and the FDs and MDs and all the other Ds that are out there, to then come to a decision. Then they meet again and they meet again. By the time they finalize that, God, the thing that we were talking about has probably changed.
Martha,
So,
can I just, is there any, can we reach out anywhere to find out more or get any help on this?
Yeah. Talk to the SME Centre of Excellence, give us a call or send us an email. It'll probably be me answering, and just ask some questions. We've got a customer journey map, stuff like that we can give you. So just let us know.
Martha, did you want to go through the rest of your journey that you have there, the other things, the key points?
Yes. So I'll just quickly run through the key points here. So you need to map the steps your customer goes through from start to finish, and all the actions that you as a business have to complete for each of those steps. Plus that, think about what the actions your customer have to do. If they're just seeing an advert, they don't need to do anything. But if you want them to sign up to something, how many times do they have to click sign up now before they get to fill in the form? How many of those touch points interfere with their journey? Think about things like that. And then, like I just mentioned, a good way to think about it is to map it out, is to visually represent how your customer's feeling. Draw a smiley face next to an event that you think will make them happy. Draw a sad face next to something that you think might annoy them. It just helps it, makes it easier to see the areas that might need improvement. Then look at the barriers that are preventing the customer from moving on through the journey. Does it cost too much? Is there too much of a process in there? Does it cancel out what they want to do? And then the last thing is just look at these barriers and places you've highlighted where the customer isn't going to be enjoying the journey as much, and try to work out what you can do to improve. Sometimes you can't do anything, but a lot of the time, even something small could improve how the customer's feeling at that point. And that's it.
Excellent. Well, it is really a vital part of all businesses, and I think it's a really important subject that you've talked upon today. I think the only thing, like I mentioned before, is just connecting to society today, and we're understanding the importance of kind of social evolutions of the mind in many ways, because that's effectively your buyer behavior that you tie that into. So if you can do that as a business and put that in your business plan, I'm sure your business is going to be far more proficient and help you kind of cope with all the changes that we're facing in society today. And as we talked about earlier, Dan, in the macroeconomic world, there's so much going on, but ultimately the customer journey is so critical to the success of your business. So it's a really, really good subject that you touched upon.
That's really well underlined, Jalf. Really good. We're probably going to get pushed along here, I believe, some point soon.
We've got a couple of minutes. We've got a couple of minutes, and then Spice FM, they will kick in, I'm sure, with their jingles at some point and boot us off.
Yeah.
But I think, it's been nice just to catch up with yourselves in Amar's absence. The big man's probably just doing his journeys around the country. Is he local, or is he gone?
He's gone global.
Gone global. But it doesn't surprise us.
Yeah.
Can't really keep up with Amar at the moment. So good. And you guys are super busy in office at the moment?
Super busy, lot going on. We've got this thing which unashamedly I've had in the background all the time here, Jalf, about Yola, which you may or may not have heard about, but it's our new experiential learning platform, really to try to instill all the measures of innovation within people. So it's really great for
dedicated Asian and world music radio stations.
Russian missile attacks on residential buildings in the Ukrainian port city of Odessa have killed at least 18 people, including 2 children.